Wait, what about weird?
Hi, I'm Echo.
And I'm Elena.
And this is What About Weird, a podcast dissecting all things weird, from cryptids and aliens to strange science and unhinged history. So, the month of August is National Immunization Awareness Month, and in honor of that, I kind of wanted to remind us of all of the awful shit we could be suffering through or dying of without vaccinations or other medical advancements. First, I'm going to briefly discuss a few diseases that, thanks to vaccinations, most people no longer have to worry about, starting with smallpox. Also, listen, I'm calling this episode Medieval Maladies because that is a dope-ass name, okay?
It is good. It rolls off the tongue well.
Now, some of these came far before like what we would consider medieval times, but then like lasted through medieval times. So I think that still counts.
It still counts.
Some of these were technically like Renaissance era, early modern age, like a little bit after medieval times.
Listen, if people at Renaissance fairs dress like medieval knights, I think you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying, you know, if you're going to be like, well, technically, medieval was this period to this period. I know. I don't care. I'm calling the episode that anyway because it sounds cool.
It sounds better than medieval maladies and Renaissance Rias. I don't know.
Exactly. It's just not as good. Anyway, so starting with smallpox. Smallpox was an infectious disease caused by the variola virus. It caused vomiting, fever, mouth ulcers, and a rash all over the skin that eventually turned into fluid-filled blisters.
I feel like we should have said before you started talking, don't eat and listen to this episode.
Probably not, because there's going to be some slightly, like, I don't go into that much detail, but it's still going to be like kind of slightly gross medical-y stuff. It's about diseases, so if that makes you uncomfortable while you're like, I don't know, munching on your lunch, then maybe don't eat that.
I don't know, spaghetti.
Oh no!
I feel like that'd be the worst food.
You've ruined spaghetti for everybody right now.
I was like, what's the worst food you could eat? It was between like that or some kind of soup. But I was like, I'm not going to do that.
So eventually these fluid-filled blisters would scab over and then leave scars all over the body. Smallpox was even said to be the cause of 1 in 3 cases of blindness in 18th century Europe.
How does it cause blindness?
Because I think you get like the smallpox like in your eyes.
Your eyeball surface. I hate that. Oh my God. I hate that so much. I wish I hadn't have asked. I thought it was going to be like it attacked your nervous system in some way or another. But that's so much worse. Ugh, my eyeballs itch. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. God, I'm cursed with this knowledge.
Yeah, you shouldn't have asked.
No. I thought it was just going to be nervous issues. That's so gross. I hate that. I'm going to be thinking about that all episode. Why am I like this?
So the earliest evidence of smallpox was in 1500 BCE in Egyptian mummies. It was reported that 30% of people who got smallpox would die, with the number being even higher for infants and young children. Smallpox is estimated to have killed 300 million people in the 1900s and approximately 500 million people in like the last 100 years that it existed. So about between 1877 to 1977. China began inoculation for smallpox in the mid-1500s, which was a way of implanting a virus or even a microbe into an individual to induce immunity in order to preemptively treat the disease. So kind of like an early form of vaccination. And eventually in 1796, the vaccine was created. And then in 1967, which just from 1796 to 1967, keep in mind that gap of time, almost 200 years, the World Health Organization finally made drastic efforts to eliminate the disease, and their efforts were successful when in 1977 the last case of smallpox was documented, and in 1980 it was considered fully eradicated.
Is this one of those things that we considered fully eradicated, but now that there's anti-vaxxers, it's coming back like mumps and measles?
No, because like smallpox does not exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
It was a human...
Gone.
Yeah, it was a human-only virus.
Okay,
so
that helps.
Once it's like gone in everybody, it's gone. However, there have been conspiracies. Like during 9/11, the U.S. government was legitimately worried that like terrorists would basically find strains of the smallpox virus that are still out there, or like bioengineer it. Like basically,
how do we know that it is entirely gone?
There have been no cases of smallpox anywhere in the world since the last case in 1977.
Okay.
Like it was literally a worldwide program.
Okay, that's encouraging. I'm just, you understand my paranoia with all these anti-vaxxers and everything.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you can I don't know if they find it in like ancient Egyptian mummies or whatever, or in like medieval grave sites. I don't know if there's possibly a way to like, I don't know, genetically, have the strain. And because like obviously like since we have the vaccination for it, we technically have the information for the virus still.
Yeah, so someone could like Jurassic Park it back into existence.
Yeah, so they were more so worried about terrorists bioengineering smallpox, like bringing it back somehow from the information that they have about smallpox, and using it as like a weapon against the U.S. So when the stuff with the World Trade Center happened, they actually like started pushing military personnel and medical personnel to be vaccinated for smallpox again. Because at that point when 9/11 happened,
it had already been gone for what, 20 years?
Yeah, for like over 20 years at that point. And so people had stopped getting vaccinated for smallpox.
That's why I'm so worried that if it's not entirely eradicated, because that's usually how these things go. And I was like, oh, it's going to break out and everybody's going to die.
Smallpox is definitely like gone, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be like variations of other diseases similar to it in the future, So they started like pushing people to get the smallpox vaccines again because they were worried that now that so many people were like unvaccinated
it would just wipe through.
Yeah, that it would completely decimate the population before anyone had anything to do with it. Of course, that like didn't happen, and the fears were like pretty unwarranted. But that was a whole thing, and that wasn't even in my notes for this episode. It was just some information I had because we were like kind of discussing a similar thing. But no, there haven't been any cases since 1977, which is super encouraging. I think the smallpox vaccine is a highly, highly successful one. So we're hoping it stays gone.
Yeah, but it is very encouraging for other diseases and stuff, knowing that, okay, we've fully gotten rid of this disease, because like we haven't fully gotten rid of like the bubonic plague. Wasn't there like a few years ago a case of an old couple? And the plague is different
because there's not a vaccination for the plague. Like if there was, it would be different.
But it's just kind of like that's something a lot of people don't think about, is like they're like, oh yeah, the plague happened and it's never happened again. Nobody's gotten, the bubonic plague. That's such a medieval disease. And then like 3 years ago, an old couple in Colorado died from the plague.
Yeah, and every couple of years someone does. It's just like what we choose to focus on.
Don't go petting prairie dogs. Is it prairie dogs that have it?
Any rodent really. And it's not the rodents that carry it, I'm pretty sure. It's the fleas. If you don't think smallpox sounds too bad, go take a look at some individuals with smallpox. Like look up photos of it and you will definitely change your mind. It is fucking horrifying.
I know that it's really bad, but now I have to look up. Oh yeah, no, that is, I hate that. I can see how that would get on your eyeballs. I don't like that at all.
It's fucking terrifying.
I just wanted to be informed, and now I regret it.
Yeah. If I had to look at the photos, you do too.
Yay, friendship.
The next one that I'm going to talk about is polio. So polio is a highly infectious disease caused by the polio virus. 75% of cases are asymptomatic or only cause mild symptoms, such as a sore throat and fever. But in cases that are severe, the afflicted person may experience headaches, stiffness, numbness, or in the case that the disease affects the nervous system, they may get meningitis, severe muscle pain, or even paralysis, which may be permanent. Once someone is infected with polio, there's no specific treatment to cure it. The disease can only be prevented through the polio vaccine. Historically, an iron lung was used to help paralyzed polio patients to keep breathing. The iron lung enclosed the majority of a person's body and would vary the air pressure in the enclosed space to breathe for someone. What did I say?
Majority?
I mispronounce things so frequently.
No, it's okay.
I legitimately don't notice a lot of the time until I go to edit the episode. Like, I meant to say plane, or I meant to say plan in an episode, and I accidentally said plane, and I was like, God fucking damn it, Alice, it sounds weird.
It's okay. I will mispronounce things all the time. I was re-listening to one of our old episodes and discovered that I don't say silver, I say selver, and I hate it. Or like people giving me a hard time about saying the way that I say like the sixth number in the...
Yeah.
Because if I don't think about it...
consistent, though. Like, yours are, like, consistent.
Yours are just, yeah.
Like, what words you pronounce differently. Mine are just random fucking words. And so I won't notice that I've just messed up a letter in a word. And then I go to edit it. And I'm like, God fucking damn it.
No,
I think I'm so dumb.
That's... A lot of my stuff is that way, too. But I am pretty consistent with it. I don't care. I just thought majority was cute. Majority.
I'm still going to repeat that sentence. The iron lung enclosed the majority of a person's body and would vary the air pressure in the enclosed space to breathe for someone. People who had polio and permanent paralysis that were put in the iron lung may never get better and may remain in the iron lung for the rest of their life.
Isn't there someone who's still alive in an iron lung?
I was just going to talk about that.
Oh.
Martha Lillard, the last U.S. iron lung user, just died. I think it was July 11th. So when this comes out,
wow, okay.
Just died last month at the age of 78. Martha had contracted polio at the age of 5 and for the rest of her life had to rely on the iron lung every night in order to breathe. So she could go out for a couple hours. Like, usually when they put someone in an iron lung for the first bit, they're like in it constantly. Mm-hmm. And then eventually maybe they'll get a little better, but eventually over time, like, because like if their breathing center is still like pretty much fully paralyzed, they can get to the point a lot of the time where they can spend a couple minutes outside of the iron lung, and then maybe it's like a couple hours outside of the iron lung. And I think Martha had got to the point where she could like go out for like most of the day, several hours of the day, but then every single night she had to be in the iron lung in order to breathe. And it was really tricky because during power outages,
I was gonna say I had heard about her through a thing about power outages.
Yeah, exactly. And she had, I think, 2 of them. One during like an ice storm and the other during like a tornado or something,
I think it was something correctly. Like that.
Yeah, but she like, when there were power outages, she would just be stuck in the iron lung struggling to breathe for however long until the power came back on, which is
and they had to get like
scary.
4 generators or something.
Yeah, and unfortunately, polio has not been eradicated, and due to it being highly transmissible and not really treatable once you contract it, it's extremely important to get vaccinated against it.
So how do they treat it now? Because you said the last iron lung user, how do they do it?
Literally, you just have to be on a respirator. So there's stuff that we have today to like manage it, but it's a shit life for the rest of your life if you don't get better. And you could just completely fucking prevent it by getting vaccinated. The thing is, so at the end, you know, in the last couple of years, like, Martha's iron lung had started to break down, but there are no parts for the iron lung anymore. There's no repair text for it. So when her iron lung started breaking down, there was nothing to be done about it because, like, we don't use those anymore.
Is that unfortunately why she ended up passing, or was it passing of, like, old age and just literally having a lifelong health complication?
Part of it I read was because she had long COVID, which is really terrible.
Especially for someone in an iron lung.
Yeah. I read one article that said it was due to her iron lung breaking down. I read another article that said it was long COVID. I read another one that said she was just old. I think a lot of them are very fucking, like, clickbaity, because I read a lot of them, like, the day she passed away or the day after, and they're just trying to garner people's attention. So I don't know which one of them is, like, 100% fact. I believe, really, in my personal opinion, that it's probably, like, all three of those are probably
combined,
true and contributed to it. It's just, like, each article chooses to focus on a different thing, whichever thing that they think is going to rile people up the most.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Love that. Get your vaccines.
Yeah, please.
If you are able to. For the sake of the people who aren't able to. And also because nobody wants polio.
Nobody wants polio. That is very true.
There's probably some guy out there that's like, I feel like it'd be pretty nice. Because there's always weirdos out there.
There's always people that are like that. The next disease we're going to talk about is tetanus, a serious nervous system disease caused by bacteria.
I need to get my tetanus shot. Go get it. Most insurances cover it.
Yeah, they should. It's pretty much considered like one of the mandatory vaccines.
Also, I'm sure you're going to talk about it at some point, but I found out you can get tetanus from non-metal objects, like a splinter.
Yes, that is a myth. Since tetanus is caused by a bacteria, it's just out there in the dirt. If you have a open wound on your hand and it gets dirty at all, there can be tetanus in that dirt. In anything. Like, it's just a bacteria.
It just has to get into your skin.
Yeah, and so if you are, like, working out in the dirt and an open wound gets dirty, that can have tetanus in it. And so if you are somebody that is not vaccinated, that hasn't recently been vaccinated, because you're supposed to get your tetanus every 10 years.
10 years, okay. I thought it was every 7.
And sometimes they recommend it, like, more frequently for certain people, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure it's, like, every 10 years for adults. But, like, yeah, if you're, like, unvaccinated or you haven't been vaccinated in that amount of time, then you need to clean out that wound immediately. And as soon as you start showing signs of tetanus, like, go to a doctor, because tetanus is extremely, extremely severe. Symptoms of tetanus include painful muscle spasms, difficulty swallowing, muscle tension, and as the disease progresses, the individual affected may experience painful seizure-like spasms that last several minutes, change in blood pressure, rapid heart rate, fever, and sweating. And tetanus is a life-threatening illness, and it may be treated with antibiotics, but, this isn't always effective. So the only way to ensure that you are safe is by getting vaccinated. And these aren't even, like, close to all of the diseases that have been prevented due to vaccinations. Other diseases like rabies, measles, diphtheria, yellow fever, etc. can be prevented with vaccination. And without it,
and that'll also help prevent shingles.
Yes, later in life.
And getting both of those, they've discovered that getting the shingles vaccine can, like, dramatically lower your chance of getting, is it Alzheimer's or dementia? One of the two of those earlier in life. So to, like, push back, you're more likely to get it later as opposed to earlier in life if you get the shingles vaccine. So.
Yeah, and even if some of these aren't, like, life-threatening for you personally, it's absolutely horrific to go through. Like, I would rather get a shot in the arm than have to go through any of these, because it's pretty terrible. Vaccines are both safe and effective. This has been shown time and time again. And of course, there are very rare adverse reactions, just like there is to any medication. But the blanket term vaccines are bad is just so far from true. If you get a bacterial infection and need an antibiotic, there's also side effects and risks associated with antibiotics as well. And right now, you're more at risk eating a piece of lettuce right now than you are getting a vaccine. People can have rare adverse reactions to cleaning products, lotions, makeup, medicine, foods, drinks, clothing, literally anything that you can put in and on your body, you can have an adverse reaction to. So sometimes that stuff just happens. Every individual is different. Their health history is different. Their allergies are different. You're no more at risk having an adverse reaction from a vaccine as you would many other daily items that you put in and on your body. A lot of the reason people are wary of vaccines is because of a study done in 1998 that linked the MMR vaccine to autism. And because this study was done by doctors and it was published in The Lancet, which is a popular medical journal, it really rocked our whole understanding of stuff. But I will first mention that the sample size for the study was only 12 children, and it has since
and they all already had autism.
It has since been proven that and admitted to that the data from the study was not only cherry-picked, but even fabricated in some spots, and that some of the children involved that were autistic had parents who were already ready to sue pharmaceutical companies for giving their child vaccinations. And so this study would directly help their case. And that is a huge conflict of interest when you are a researcher.
That would make sense.
Yeah. A lot of people reference that study. That is the main one that fucked everything up. And so, doctors have been scrambling ever since to kind of disprove something that wasn't even true to begin with. Not only that, but there was a 14-year study done on the MMR vaccine that is extremely rigorous, extremely good, followed the correct protocol, has the correct data, that came out in the same year, just a little bit after this one did. And they were like, what the fuck? We didn't find any evidence of the stuff that you guys are reporting.
It's just interesting that I know something could be proved wrong, but if someone's like, nope, this is what I think, you find one source, even if it's been disproven, you're going to be like, yep, that's the case. That's true. That's how it is, Yeah.
And so the Lancet ended up pulling the article from publication, which was the first time in the 150 years of the journal running that this happened. That is how bad and messed up and misinformative that study was. And don't get me wrong, I understand the distrust and general dislike of the medical and pharmaceutical institution. However, you have to keep in mind that there are thousands of highly educated, motivated, scientists and researchers working on this stuff with no ulterior motive. They just want to do good work and help out the world or discover something new. And if you're,
I think the problem is that people get doctors and the people doing this work mixed up with the quote-unquote medical industry, because I have issues
with the corporations.
The corporatization of medicine. But I know so many people in the medical field who are doing great work and are just as pissed off with the medical system as we are, because they're like, I just want to help people. I don't want to, not offer them this important thing that they need to live because the insurance company says, oh no, we're not going to cover that.
It's tricky. I would say trust your doctors and still trust scientists, but you should always be looking into if there's any conflicts of interest
or biases,
where people are getting their funding from. Yeah. When I look at studies, I always look at the conflicts of interest tab, and sometimes they don't always disclose it. So I'll look up who the fuck funded this study, because I don't know if they're doing a study that's proving something that's super helpful for the company. Yeah. That they're proving it for.
It's convenient that this specific name brand was mentioned a bunch. that wasn't the whole thing with, I don't rightly remember off the top of my head, but wasn't the whole thing with Tylenol causing autism because the person who paid for that study owned a company that was like a competitor to Tylenol?
I haven't looked into that, but I wouldn't doubt it. So if you're worried of the small chance of having a vaccine-related reaction or the risks of a vaccine, I assure you that the alternative of having one of these diseases is so much worse. And getting vaccinated doesn't just affect you, it affects the people around you. Because if there are enough people out there that think, oh, I'll be fine without a vaccination, there's herd immunity, then the herd immunity thing kind of goes out the window because not enough people are getting vaccinated, and then we end up with outbreaks. Not to mention, herd immunity doesn't matter when it comes to bacteria-caused infections such as tetanus or for illnesses like rabies that are contracted from animals. So do yourself a favor and everyone else, a possibly life-saving favor, and get your vaccines. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about some non-vaccine related illnesses that have plagued the past. And this is when we're getting a little bit more into the medieval stuff. So in medieval European literature, we often spoke of outbreaks of an illness that left thousands dead and many more permanently disabled, often after a damp spring or a cold and wet winter. The disease wasn't contagious, and so it took an incredibly long time to pinpoint and diagnose. But this dreadful disease was called ergotism, or is also known as St. Anthony's fire. It was named after Anthony the Great, who was a Christian monk in Egypt, who is the patron saint of skin diseases. And then the fire part comes from the burning sensation that accompanied the illness.
St. Anthony's fire, not to be confused with St. Elmo's fire or the movie St. Elmo's fire.
I thought of that when I was writing this too. That's so funny.
I do want to do an episode on St. Elmo's fire at some point, but...
Yeah, that would be good.
I like that they have a patron saint of skin illnesses.
Dude,
there's a patron saint for everything, I swear.
Literally everything. Literally everything. It's so funny to me. So ergotism is a form of poisoning that occurs when someone ingests grains such as rye that contain the fungus Claviceps purpurea. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but we're going to pretend I did. Infected grain is often mixed in with healthy grain and goes unnoticed until an outbreak ensues. The crop is infected when airborne fungal spores make contact with and infect the developing flowers of the grain. It produces a slime which attracts insects, which then pick up and spread more of the fungus to more and more of the grain. So when the affected grain was harvested and used in kitchens, the fungi and fungal metabolites in the ergot would cause poisoning in humans and animals that ate it. The fungal metabolites are designated as alkaloids since they contain nitrogen atoms, and depending on soil content, the alkaloid makeup may be different in each crop. So this might be the difference in alkaloids as well as the amount in them. The mechanism of action for ergotism in humans comes from ergot alkaloid activation of hormone receptors such as the serotonin, dopamine, and epinephrine receptors.
And we talked about some of those in the psychedelic plants and animals episode, or psychoactive plants and animals episodes.
Yes, exactly. So symptoms of ergot poisoning include the convulsive symptoms such as seizures, spasms, hallucinations, itching, and mental illness such as mania or psychosis, and then also headaches. But then there are also gangrenous symptoms, which include gastrointestinal issues such as nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, and vasoconstriction, which leads to poor vascular circulation in fingers. Wow, why the fuck can I talk?
I don't know. Why can't you talk? It makes things more interesting.
I'm speaking way too fast. Poor vascular circulation in fingers and toes, and may lead to loss of sensation and then death of the tissues that are affected. Ergot was actually the earliest known plant disease, with early writings about it dating back to 1100 BCE in China. The first documented outbreak of ergot happened in the year 944 in France and killed about 20,000 people. During this time, ergotism may have been treated using relics of St. Anthony that were said to be a divine cure. They may also give you what is called St. Anthony's water, which is a lard-based topical ointment, or you may be given St. Anthony's wine, which was made from grapes that grew near where the relics were stored. Or if you were part of a church that believed getting ill was a sin, then they kind of just left you to suffer. They were like, oops, you got sick, which means you're a sinner.
Sounds like all of those people are just now in power in the United States. Oh. Well, if you got sick, that's your problem.
Yeah, exactly. Guess you can die.
Too bad. That's your fault for being immoral in some way or another.
Yeah, how dare you get sick?
It's a moral failing that you have gotten sick.
Yeah. So despite the fact that it was so deadly, ergot was actually used in midwifery practices starting in the 1500s to advance laser? What the fuck? God.
Advanced baby lasers? Okay. Eat this ergot, it'll give you a baby laser.
To advance labor.
That
with
makes
a
more
fucking
sense.
B. God fucking damn it. Learn to speak. To advance
Two very
labor.
different things.
And enable contractions. The first recorded incident of this is in 1582 when basically they collected 3 little individual ergot grains from the field and they gave it to a pregnant woman to induce labor. And now we know that while this amount is enough to cause ergotism symptoms, it wouldn't have been enough to cause the gangrene symptoms. And it actually would have contained 0.5 milligrams of uteroactive alkaloid ergometrine, which was used in the 1970s by obstetricians for the same purpose. In the 1750s, ergot was sold under the name pulvis impartum, meaning the dust to create, which was used sparingly for a while, but when use picked up in 1808, it was eventually linked to several stillbirths in 1824. Ergot was then known as pulvis ad mortem, which is dust of death. Ergometrine ended up being purified in 1935 to be used in drugs to induce labor like it had been used, but also as a vasoconstrictive agent and to help prevent postpartum hemorrhages.
What in it exactly do we know? Is it what makes it work so well for
it's that
uteroactive
labor? It's that uteroactive alkaloid, the ergometrine. Yeah, all ergot is like the combination of a whole bunch of different types of alkaloids. And so that was the problem, is like they were just giving people ergot. And so they weren't just getting the uteroactive alkaloid, they were getting all of the other super harmful alkaloids with it. But then by 1935...
this will help you give birth and trip balls.
Yeah. You might go crazy for a little bit, but then you'll probably be fine. You probably won't die.
But isn't that just being a mother?
Yeah. But then, yeah, since they actually purified it in 1935, then they could, basically have that specific alkaloid that would just help with the vasoconstriction, the inducing of labor, and the prevention of hemorrhages. That's what the uteroactive alkaloid did.
I love when we create medicines from things in nature.
I know, right? It's so dope. I know, and I know we talked about this in the psychoactive episode too. We talked about several things that are plants that have been used in medicine.
Yeah, and some that they're currently
fish.
Using to use for medicine. Or I think it was
a snail. Was it a snail?
There was a snail, and then they're working with a sea sponge to turn it into an antidepressant.
Right. Okay, that's what it was. So fucking cool.
Yeah. It's so cool. And aspirin comes from willow bark. That's cool. And doesn't what's it called? Penicillin come from a bread mold?
Yeah, a type of fungus. And then of course malaria comes from the malaria medication. What is it called again?
Quinine?
Yeah. It's
found in some sort of root of a plant or something.
Yeah.
And they figured out how to isolate that.
In 1868, ergot was also being used to treat migraines.
Time for you to eat moldy bread.
Exactly. It also may have been used purposefully as an abortive agent at times rather than meaning to induce a healthy birth. Some historians believe that, young girls who took it may have been given to it by a doctor that was like, oh, this will help you induce your labor, but it was almost like helping assist with them getting rid of a child.
I was going to do an episode before I switched topics on poisons as medicines, and one of the things I found when I'd started researching that before I switched topics was that there's a lot of things that are like in minor ways, and depending on what period of time you use it in, like during a pregnancy, how much and what time it's either like an abortive agent or it helps with labor, or it's like, well, in small amounts this can actually cure headaches and help with this and help with that, but in large amounts it'll fucking kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, that's also like pain pills.
Yeah, anything in a large amount. Well, and like, of course, it's like different versus when it's not pure versus when it's like purified too. And then there are actually a couple historians that believe that some young girls who were experiencing hallucinations, burning, or prickling sensations due to ergot poisoning in the 1600s may have led to accusations and then trials and executions associated with the Salem witchcraft trials.
I've always thought that part is so interesting because, like, you hear that as like a theory put forward a bunch.
I mean, there's so many theories of it, but I think that one's definitely interesting for sure.
Well, my theory is that they were witches. They were bad bitches.
There we go. Eventually, wheat started becoming the primary food source instead of rye, which led to fewer and fewer poisonings by ergot. And now in the modern era, it's extremely rare. By the 1800s, there were many preventative measures in place to stop ergot, such as planting seed that was clean and dry, having standard practices for planting and harvesting grain, crop rotation, and fertilization during the growing period. Ergots today are still being explored for their benefits for migraines and as well as their ability to possibly treat Parkinson's or dementia. So that's pretty dope.
That is cool.
Now we're off to a disease that plagued many, but it may not be as it appears. Green sickness, aka the disease of virgins, was a quote-unquote disease of the 16th through the 20th century that produced symptoms such as unusual color of the face and body, swelling of the face and eyelids, heaviness of the body, tension in the feet and legs, difficult respiration, heart palpitations, headaches, rapid pulse, drowsiness, a longing for things that are noxious and not fit to be eaten, which is known as pica, and the suppression of menstrual discharge. With a laundry list of symptoms such as this, there are many ailments we know today that could have led to what was called green sickness. A few examples include lead poisoning, stomach ulcers, tuberculosis, anorexia, or pregnancy. The tricky thing about green sickness is it doesn't lead us to one specific disease. Girls diagnosed with green sickness all could have been suffering from different maladies or perhaps weren't suffering from anything at all, and this was another disease like hysteria.
They're just giving people, because when I was looking into it, a lot of it was just like well, you're a bitchy, tired, lazy girl. We're going to marry you off.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's probably what a lot of it was. And green sickness could have been anything from mental illness to hormonal disorders, and it was likely many things masked under the one term.
And like anemia, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And much like hysteria, it was a gender disease that eventually just went away. Unlike a disease like tuberculosis, there was no moment of discovery, no vaccine, no lasting green sickness for us to study today. Green sickness was said to appear in young girls around the time that they were expecting their period. So during this time in medicine, it was thought that...
when you say when they're expecting their period, you mean when they're expecting like to start it for the very first time?
Yeah.
Or like around
when they're
that time of the month?
expecting their very first menses, that's when like the onset of green sickness occurs. And like it just stays with you until we address
you get married.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But during this period of time in medicine, it was thought that women contained too much blood, and that is why they bled every month, and that such a bleeding was needed for their health.
Saying that as a threat to someone, you contain too much blood.
And just stab them.
Yeah. Seriously, officer, I was trying to help them out. They just had too much blood in their body.
It was also believed at this time that the excess blood is what feeds a baby in the womb, hence why the period stops during pregnancy, and that eventually, after the baby was born, that blood would then become the breast milk that feeds the baby.
Well, obviously you stop bleeding when you have a baby because you got to put a plug in there so the baby doesn't fall out. That's if I've learned anything from men on the internet, that's how it works.
Oh my God. I can't even, because I know that some people have legitimately said that. I can't.
What do you think tampons are for?
Stop. Adolescent girls were said to have the most blood in them that needed to be expelled for their health. Practitioners of medicine believed that maybe if there was a blockage or that the blood was flowing in the wrong direction, or perhaps if they didn't have
Your blood is flowing upstream.
Perhaps if they didn't have a big enough route to leave the body, which you can picture what that means. Yeah. They
God, I hate men sometimes.
That needed to be fixed. And they thought all of this was a problem because if blood was not regularly expelled from the body, then harmful vapors may build up in a girl's system and she will become masculinized.
If you don't have your period, you're going to be a man. If you take any form of birth control that stops your period or slows it down, you're a man now.
Yeah, you've lost all of your feminine ways.
You're bleeding is feminine. If you bleed as a man, sorry, you're a girl now. If you ever bled as a man, woman behavior.
So at this point, when they become masculinized, or like right before it, is when a doctor or a husband would step in to induce menstruation. Eventually, in the 20th century, we would begin to recognize it as a blood disorder called hypochromic anemia, which is a condition where red blood cells are paler than normal because they contain less hemoglobin than they should. And you may be wondering why green sickness is named that way, since we haven't really mentioned being green as a symptom of the illness. There is actually evidence to suggest that green may have simply meant a degree of paleness.
Yeah, so, I think we talked about that in the
Green Children of Woolpit.
The Green Children, because green could have gotten mistranslated or like a yellower color.
Exactly, or for simply meaning like pale, off color, you know?
Yeah, like when someone says you're green to the gills when you like visibly look sick.
Mm-hmm. So this disease of virgins was actually also called white fever or chlorosis on occasion, with each meaning drawing attention to the extremely pale complexion that the illness seemed to bring on. The reason for calling it green sickness may also have to do with the fact that throughout literature of the time, the color green seemed to be the color of lovers and also the color of inexperience. You know, adolescent girls, inexperience.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the green thing, but what do you mean how is green related to lovers?
That's just the color they picked for it. Like how red is or pink is associated with lovers now.
They were just like, fucking, it's green.
Yeah. We associate like green with money, I think now, just because of the dollar bill. But in the past, it had those other associations of green for lovers, the green of inexperience, like fresh grass, you know?
I guess, yeah.
So girls with green sickness were considered passive, weak, and just like with tuberculosis, the thinness and paleness from the illness left these girls highly sexualized. And just like hysteria was a common term to use for just about anything a woman might experience, green sickness became the same for adolescent girls. So what was done about this sickness?
Terrible, horrible things.
Yeah. Doctors recommended that the best way to cure this disease of virgins was, of course, to have sex. They thought having intercourse would open up the womb and let the blood circulate and come out easier. And this is where shit gets really ironic, because we're talking about a society in which virginity is seen as pure and holy, like the Virgin Mary. Virgins were praised, and yet we now have a disease where many young girls are being pushed into having sex as a cure for something that doesn't even exist or is another issue entirely.
I think this is just an excuse for men to, like you said, put down women and also be like, I gotta cure you. I just gotta. And like as a socially acceptable reason to fucking assault them.
Yeah, it's absolutely fucking disgusting. And of course the church still required you to get married before having sex. So this was basically a way to marry off young women or marry off children, because a lot of them were still children, and force them to have children as soon as they were seen as ready. So as soon as they started their menses, they're like, you must have,
yeah, because
you look a little pale.
Totally not damaging to a body.
Yeah, you look a little pale. You must have green sickness. Now that you've started your menses, you better get married and have a fucking child to cure it. If you didn't get married and have sex, sometimes herbal preparations were used or vigorous exercise was suggested. These actually overlap heavily with abortive agents at the time, which of course, abortion-inducing agents were often used to induce menstrual flow because although not expressly said to be used for abortion purposes, may have worked to restore a period if the reason it was missing was due to pregnancy. Because remember, another reason, like another symptom of green sickness is losing your menses every month, like losing your period every month. And maybe some of those cases were due to women being pregnant. So if they prescribed them some of the stuff that would have also been considered an abortive agent,
it's like, well, it worked. It did what we needed it to.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, a lot of the stuff like vigorous exercise that they said was going to make you have like an abortion or whatever didn't, but
Yeah.
The doctor may also put onions on a girl's face as they were supposed to thin out the blood.
I just think that's so funny. It's like, come here, pale girl, let me adorn your face like a sandwich. Just like she's just slapping onions on.
Sobbing, crying, because like the onions are burning her eyes the entire time.
Yes, it is working. The sickness is leaking out through your eyes. You are releasing the excess fluid through your eyes. And she's like, I can't fucking see.
Okay, and then this cure is also, this is bad. So the hymen may have also been surgically removed as a way to medically make sure a girl was no longer a virgin, which is fucking terrifying because this is at a time where surgery wasn't a thing. A delightful thing. And
people didn't believe in hand washing.
Yeah, not good. I'm sure a lot of girls died from that. So that's
well, you can't have green sickness if you're fucking dead.
Yeah. And, of course, there were many other strange cures to fix green sickness, but we're not going to get into all that wacky shit they used to do. And while the term green sickness no longer exists, we've kind of transitioned into calling it that hyperchromic anemia. This likely is what most of the girls were suffering from, and many of them likely weren't suffering from anything at all. But green sickness gave the patriarchal world a reason to marry girls off and place them under the control of their husbands as early as possible once they started their menses. So medicine has long been used to enforce societal norms and gender roles, and green sickness seems to be just another case of that.
Yay, medicine.
Yeah. Aren't you so glad that we have modern medicine? Like, it's not perfect, but it's better than that.
Better than, I'll take what I can get.
I'm not happy with the medical institution, but you know what? I'm so glad we have vaccines. I'm so glad we have antibiotics.
And I'm so glad green sickness isn't a thing anymore.
Yeah. And also why, if anyone ever calls me hysterical, dude, somebody's getting fucking murdered. I don't like that term.
Yeah.
Unless I'm using it as like a... Like, I would never call a woman hysterical. I might say someone was, like, hysterically crying. Like, you know? Like, but I would never, like, call a woman who is, like, freaking out hysterical. Don't do that.
I would call someone that, like, as a joke if they, like, it wasn't in a situation where they're actually freaking out.
Yeah,
you know? I'd be like, oh, you're so hysterical.
Because, like, I mean, pinning these medical terms on women and then, like, forcing them to do stuff with their bodies that they didn't want to do when, like, nothing was wrong with them, and, like marrying them off, admitting them to institutions, like, treating them just like the absolute fucking garbage of the earth was terrible and so damaging for, like, hundreds of years.
You live and you learn, eh? I'm not sure how to, like, transition out of that, but is that all you have?
That is all I have.
Oh boy, did we learn some things.
Oh boy, did we learn. I got so mad when doing this research. It, like, took all of me not to just, like, scream into the mic the entire episode.
Yeah, that's why I was researching green sickness for the green children, and I, like, went down a rabbit hole of it, and I was like, I'm just going to walk into the woods and become one with the moss, because what the fuck?
Yeah, what the fuck is right? But I'm glad we got to do, like, a little bit of a deep dive on it, because it is, like, I hadn't really heard of it before, but it's kind of a big deal in history.
Yeah, I think that's because I also hadn't heard about it until I heard about the Green Children of Woolpit, and then I heard that as, like, a theory proposed, like, for it, and I'd only heard that theory proposed by, like, one person. I was like, what is green sickness? I looked into it, and it was like, if you look into the scholars, they're like, yeah, there's a possible thing that they were saying could have been a cause of the green children. But I'm like, I've never heard of this thing, and I feel like most people haven't.
Yeah.
I love how we just are like, this history doesn't make us look good. You don't get to learn about it.
Dude, there's so much of history that I just feel like no one ever fucking talked about, which is crazy. Like, a lot of medical history I feel like I just didn't learn about, honestly.
Yeah. No, same. And it's, like, it's still it's just like, oh, we put leeches on people, and we put, like, plague doctors were a thing. Ha ha ha. Anyway, now we have modern medicine. And it's like, okay, but how did we get here?
Yeah. It's like, thank God all that's over. It's like, okay, but do we not need to, like, still learn about it?
Yeah, so that we don't repeat the same things.
Yeah, because I feel like you learn about some key stuff like germ theory, vaccines. Like, they focus a lot on the polio vaccine.
A whole lot about.
I learned a lot about the polio vaccine in school, but I think that was just, like, because we read the book Small Steps, which is about this girl that had polio. So we focused a lot on that at my school. And then, of course, like, you know, you learn about, like, the bubonic plague. Yeah, you learn about that. Spanish flu. Stuff like that.
Even Spanish flu, I didn't hardly learn about in school. Like, the only reason I learned about the Spanish flu in school was because I, like, heard a family story relating to it, and I'm like, what is this? And I looked into it, and then, like, got really interested and fascinated in it, and it wasn't part of the curriculum. And I was talking to my history teacher about it. I was like, hey, this seems pretty important. Is this part of the curriculum? And she goes, no. And I'm like, can we make it? And I fucking love that teacher, because she made it, she did it for that year and was like, I'm going to start doing this every year, because you're right, this is important.
That's amazing. But yeah, unfortunately, like, medical history, like, unless you, I don't know, go to college and take a class in medical history, I feel like a lot of this stuff gets overlooked. How a lot of people think of it is, well, it's not a problem anymore. Why do we have to worry about it? Why do we have to learn about this when we have modern medicine and we don't have to worry about it anymore? But it's the fact that, like, it largely was, you know, affecting people. It was affecting culture. It was affecting policy. It was affecting how people were treated at the time. And it was especially affecting minority groups. Yeah. So it is important to learn about it. I think it's a very important part of history.
I think, yeah, like with tuberculosis, learning about that and learning how so much things happen because of that. But also with something like Colorado brown stain, where it's like, because of the high amount of fluoride, it would stain their teeth. But then they discovered that people in Colorado had really strong teeth because of all the fluoride, even though they were brown. And that, like, doing all that research is now why we have small amounts of fluoride in our toothpaste. And knowing that, like, because people are scared of fluoride. But, like, knowing that history and how we got to where we got to will make you trust medicine more. Like, knowing the backstory behind it, and not just, we put fluoride in toothpaste. Isn't that great? Or we put fluoride in toothpaste. Why is it in there? I don't know. I don't like that.
Because fluoride is often added to, like, drinking water in a lot of cities to help, like, strengthen people's teeth. Like, it helps with, like, dental hygiene and stuff.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people buy, like, fluoride-free toothpaste. And, like, people fucking freak out about it. And they're like, people are, like, the government's trying to poison us. They're putting fluoride, like, chemicals in our water. And, like, dude, shut the fuck up.
I mean,
like,
I know where my mom like grew up, and because of her age, they were having them like once a month or something in school. They had to do like fluoride shots to like strengthen their teeth because the high content of sulfur in the area would weaken people's teeth, which is why there's like a stereotype of hillbillies not having a lot of teeth is because of the sulfur that like deteriorates the roots of their teeth. So they're having to take fluoride shots. And then I know so many older people that are like my mom's age that are like, yeah, they were having us take poison shots in school to slowly kill us and make us all stupid. I don't know what fluoride is, and it was bad. And it's like, you still have all your teeth, lady. Most of your teeth.
Fluoride is naturally occurring in a lot of water sources.
Yeah,
why the people in Colorado had strong teeth, because it just naturally occurred in their water. And everyone was there drinking that water for like hundreds of years, and they were just fucking fine, and they had super strong teeth.
And it just got stained, it just got stained because fluoride will also do that in large quantities. It's crazy. Yeah. And this is why it's important to know this stuff. So, do you want me to do the outro?
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If you liked it, please rate the podcast and share it with the weird people in your life. Follow us on Instagram at whataboutweird.pod, where we often share pictures related to the episodes. We're also on Blue Sky as What About Weird Pod. If you have any topic suggestions or personal weird stories, please email us or DM us or email us at whataboutweirdpod@gmail.com. I almost said please DM us at our email address. And always remember,
I mean,
what is an email other than a DM?
Exactly.
And always remember
to ask about the weird.
Bye for now.